Cancel culture is out of control. Say the wrong thing and your life is destroyed. Fired from your job, shunned by friends, erased. Some call it progress, a way to hold people accountable. But history tells a much darker story. From the Spanish Inquisition, to Stalin's show trials, to Mao's Cultural Revolution, societies that punish ideas they don't like always seem to self-destruct. And Jews are often the earliest victims, the canceled canaries in the coal mine. Today, Jews once again find themselves in the front lines, targeted not only for their ideas, but for just having the wrong identity in the wrong space, on college campuses, in the arts, even on the subway.
This is your chance to get out!
This should be terrifying to everyone, not just Jews. But here's the good news. Judaism itself is like a secret weapon against cancel culture. It's rooted in thousands of years of debate, discussion, and disagreement. So what does Jewish wisdom teach us about cancel culture, and how can it help us break the cycle? Cancel culture is like a digital guillotine, where mistakes are permanent. It punishes instead of correcting. It silences instead of teaching. And worst of all, it eats away at the foundation of any free society. So how can we stop it before it's too late? To help me unpack what's going on, I reached out to one of my personal heroes, Jonathan Sacerdoti. He's a brilliant journalist who's been targeted by cancel culture himself, and he understands what's at stake.
The cancellation of speech and thought that seems to be on the rise these days is scary in large part because it can lead to the cancellation of other freedoms too.
In November, Jonathan was invited to speak at one of the oldest debating societies in the world, a place where ideas are supposed to be tested with logic, not shouted down. But that's not what happened.
I was invited last year to speak at the Oxford Union, which is a debating society in Oxford University, about Israel. But the audience there seemed very resistant to even listening to what I had to say.
That's putting it mildly. Jonathan was heckled and cursed at by a hostile crowd that came to silence him, not listen.
Sit down! Sit down! Be quiet!
It was frustrating because I just wanted to explain my side of the argument, but I don't think I was faced with a room of people who had an open mind or who were willing to listen.
A few months later, it happened again, but this time his speech was shut down before it even began.
I was invited to speak to a school called UWC Atlantic to try to give them more of a perspective of how Jewish people had experienced the world since October the 7th. In the end, the faculty told me that it was just too potentially risky or emotionally dangerous for me to be in the same room as those children, because I think that it showed little confidence in the ability of their students to hear views they might not agree with.
What makes it even more disturbing is that UWC Atlantic was founded by a Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany. It was built on the idea of promoting global understanding. When schools dedicated to tolerance start canceling conversations before they begin, something is seriously broken. So what do we do when society starts to unravel? For Jews, the answer has always been the same. Fight for the values we've carried through history, values we've protected through exile, persecution, and the darkest of times. I asked Jonathan to help me explore some of these Jewish principles that have outlasted empires and might just help us push back against cancel culture too.
Judaism has traditionally championed the idea of disagreement and debate. The Talmud is based on rabbinical discussion and debate over Jewish laws.
The Talmud is basically a giant record of arguments, page after page of rabbis disagreeing with each other, but always in pursuit of truth. There's even a Jewish phrase for that, machloket l'shem shamayim, which means disagreement for the sake of heaven. The idea is that when we debate, we sharpen each other and refine our ideas. But cancel culture does the opposite. Instead of embracing debate, it shuts it down.
Cancel culture is when you have an opinion that other people think is not just wrong, they don't just disagree with it, it's so bad that you're not allowed to share it with anyone else, and you're not allowed to talk in public on that topic.
When a society becomes afraid to hear different perspectives, it loses its ability to think. That's why it's actually a good idea to protect bad ideas.
I think it's important that we are able to experiment with wrong or bad ideas. The way that we all make our minds up as human beings is by listening to different perspectives and different points of view backed up with evidence. The principle should be that we don't cancel people for sharing bad ideas. We fight back with better ideas and we prove them wrong through rigorous argument and evidence.
Free speech isn't just about who gets to talk. It's about whether we live in a world where truth can still rise to the surface or one where it's buried by fear. A core principle of Jewish justice is to judge people lekaf zechut, with the scale tipped in their favor. It means you should give people the benefit of the doubt. The great sage Hillel taught that you should not judge your fellow until you've stood in his place. In other words, don't condemn someone when you don't know their side of the story.
If we don't presume someone is innocent until we can prove that they're guilty, we risk putting people in jail or punishing them for crimes that they may not have actually committed.
But cancel culture flips that on its head. An accusation alone can destroy someone's life. No trial, no evidence, just a presumption of guilt, which is exactly what Jewish law is designed to avoid. The book of Exodus commands that you shall not follow the majority for evil. It's a warning to think for yourself and not conform to the mob. And Jews have a long history of dealing with angry mobs.
Throughout Jewish history, there have been a series of moments where Jews have been deemed to be wrong or worthy of scapegoating. The wider societies we've been part of have deemed us unworthy of equal rights or fair treatment, and Jews have been prevented from having certain jobs or publishing or teaching or being allowed to mix with others.
From blood libels to blacklists, again and again, Jews have been the victims of misinformation, demonization, and mass hysteria. Today's version of cancel culture may not come with pitchforks and torches, but for many Jews it feels way too familiar. The painful lesson written in the blood of our ancestors is that we should never trust our fate to an angry mob. On Yom Kippur, Jews acknowledge mistakes and take responsibility. That's the heart of teshuvah, the idea that people can return to their better selves through reflection.
I do think that it's a very important principle that's embedded in Judaism, that we have the ability to accept that as humans we make mistakes or even sometimes act badly out of malice, but that with true repentance there is the possibility of improving ourselves and working to being better Jews and better humans in the year to follow.
But cancel culture permanently defines people by their worst moment. And when you take away the possibility of redemption, you trap people in their mistakes forever. A culture without forgiveness leaves people with nothing to lose. It pushes them to the margins, where they'll only get more extreme, and that threatens the stability of any free society. So if cancel culture goes against values that are core not just to Judaism, but to any free society, what can we actually do to push back?
The best way we can counter cancel culture is to try to be respectful of each other's opinions. That doesn't mean that I'll like what they have to say or I'll agree with it, or even that I won't find it very frustrating or sometimes outrageous or beyond the pale. But I will always try to counter that with better arguments, better debate, better discussion, better analysis.
That's not always easy, but it starts with a decision to respect people who disagree with you. Choose dialogue over dogma. Argue better, not louder. Don't rush to judgment, and most of all, be brave enough to speak up against the crowd.
I think the ability to say what we think and fight for what we believe in is absolutely invaluable. And it's something that those of us who grew up in free societies often take for granted. And the truth is that those freedoms are actually not free. It's our responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for our wider society and for those who will come after us, to fight for those freedoms, to preserve them. And when they are challenged, it's the brave and the confident and the bold of thought and action who stand up and defend those freedoms and fight for them with everything they've got.
There's a famous saying, "I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it." It's easy to forget how many generations died for the freedoms we enjoy. It's easy to take for granted the ancient wisdom we inherited from our ancestors. But it's our responsibility to protect it and pass it on.